Well, if you want to commute, if your commute is less than 80 miles or less than 100 miles, I would say, any 200 plus range electric vehicle will do. But how about road trips? Let's explore.
So here's what I set out to do. I set out to compare the Tesla with the shortest range, the Tesla with the longest range, and the Model 3 long range, and then a Tesla with about 260 miles of range, which would be equivalent, I would think, to the Model 3 mid-range, but the Model 3 mid-range is not in the tool that I use. So what did I do? I designed about 4 different road trips and compare these different Tesla models in terms of time it would take to get there. I also compare the same road trips done with an ICE car using Google Maps. And the first road trip is a smaller 400-ish mile road trip from Chicago to Minneapolis. And the first model that I compare was the Model X 75 kilowatt battery, right? That gives about 237 miles, right, of range. So when you do that, you get the route. Then I look at all the stations you have to charge, but here at the end you see the duration is 8 hours 18 minutes, which is in like converting it all to decimal and not hours is about 8.3 hours. Um, so and it takes 410 miles. Then we do the same for something equivalent to the Model 3 uh, mid-range, which is the Model S75D, which gives you 260 miles of range almost. And you see that the time is a little bit better. It's just flat 8 hours, and there's a little bit less miles because you probably have to go out of your way a little bit less. Then I did the same thing with the Model 3 long range, which gives you 310 miles of range per charge. And this gives us 7 hours 15 minutes, right? So 7.3 hours, 7.25 hours. And the same for 107 miles. And then the longest range car, which is the Model S100D, and that is, if you can see in the map, you only charge once there, right? So it does the trip in 7 hours 30 minutes. And then I went to Google Maps and I did, from Chicago, Illinois to St. Paul, Minnesota. And 6 hours and 3 minutes, and it's the same 407 miles. So I did this for a number of trips. The next and I created a table that we're going to see that looks a little bit like this, where we have the origin, the destination, the miles that were recommended by the Tesla road trip planner, the model, the EPA miles, approximately EPA miles that the car is rated for, and the time it took for each one of the comparisons to actually get to the destination. I included the ICE here, a regular car, and the time. Now, as we can see, pretty much all the time, the longer range is going to get there fast, right? And then the ICE it's considerably less time to get to the destinations. Now, having it in table form, you can see and pause the video to take a look at it if you want. But I decided that I was also going to do the following. I was going to put it in graph. And in graph, it looks like this. So we can see that the more miles, the x-axis here has the miles traveled. And then the y-axis is the hours that it takes us to get there. Okay, so we can see, unsurprisingly, that the Tesla Model X with 235 miles of range, 237 miles of range, is clearly the slowest to get to the finish, right? And in very long trips, it takes considerably more time than the other Tesla models. Whereas the ICE car takes considerably less time to get to destination. It's a big difference, right? These two are big differences. Now, the mid range Model 3 or the S75D, of course, it takes longer than the two cars that are rated about 300 and plus miles, the Model 3 long range and the S100D. But it's not a very, very long time. And you can see that in shorter road trips, it's pretty much about the same. It's few minutes. I mean, and by few minutes I mean less than an hour or right about an hour, if at all, difference, right? Up to like 1,000 miles. Now, most road trips that I do and that I know people do are anywhere between, are in this range, like 800 miles or so. And we don't do too many. Another consideration is anything above 1,200 miles on a Tesla is already taking around 24 hours. So this is you're probably going to do this in 2 days. So again, this difference, right, in time between the X and the other models might not be so important, because if you're going to like stop in the middle to sleep and then it's a whole new day, then for a whole new day, perhaps 1 hour more, 1 hour less is not going to make or break your road trip. So even with the 235-mile range, you can still make the same road trip in about the same time if it's a 2-day road trip, right? And if it's a 1-day road trip, a small road trip, you're in about the same ballpark. Now, what's up with the ICE? I'll try to be very objective here. This is ICE driving and never stopping. This is Tesla driving, and you have to stop. There's no other way to do this. You have to stop at the charging stations. So if you time your stops, you can stop and get coffee or get dinner. And if you have a family, you have to stop for about half an hour for meals, and there might be a stop in between. With the ICE, I have not considered that. In the Tesla, the stops are there. You just have to time them right. With the ICE, if you add stops, it's still, a much faster way to get there. Okay, if you have half-hour stops for food, and here and there another extra stop, in the longer road trips, this is still going to be a lot faster to get there. Okay, in the shorter road trips, if you have to stop once for food, in the Tesla you might stop twice. It's not a big difference, right? So let's look at our table again. For example, if I go from Chicago to St. Paul, right, on a mid-range, it takes 8 hours. Okay, on the longest range Model S, it takes 7.2 hours. That's about 7 hours 15 minutes, 7 hours 13 minutes or so. All right. Now, this is a 45-minute difference, more or less, just to approximate. It's a 45-minute difference. That's not too bad. If I'm gonna go from Chicago to Minneapolis, if I'm gonna travel 400 miles, I'm gonna stay over for the night. So 40 minutes is not gonna make or break my road trip. It's perfectly doable. Now, on the ICE car, it takes me 5.9 hours, so 6 hours to get there. But I'll probably stop for food 30 minutes and perhaps, another pit stop here and there. It's going to take me about 6.5 hours. So again, it will be just an hour difference, right? So the slowest car here takes 8.3. The fastest, including stops, is like 6.5. So this is probably roughly a 2-hour difference, less than 2-hour difference. It's very manageable. So for these kind of road trips, it doesn't matter which car you get, which range you get. You'll do it in about the same time. If you go, say, to Raleigh, which is an 800-mile road trip, I think the situation is very similar. Although the ICE car with stops, because you still do this in one day, with the ICE car with stops, you can still make this in 15, 16 hours, right? The long range, you can still make it in 16 hours. With the shortest range, now you start to get into you know, the 2-day boundary. This is probably a 2-day trip, where this is a very long 1-day trip. Now, if you have kids, all of these are 2-day trips, right? Maybe. If you go now to Orlando or to Los Angeles, or you go from Vancouver to Miami, right? Again, even in these long trips, I believe the electric cars are more or less similar. For a 22-hour trip, you're going to have to sleep somewhere, right? And you're going to have to split it in two. So whether it's 11 hours each day or 13 hours each day is not a big difference, right? So again, I don't care. I don't think that the range matters all that much when you're doing this kind of trips in an electric car. Of course, the ICE car is, at this point, the ICE car is the way to go if you're going there for speed. Now, in the very long road trip, there might be a difference between electric cars, right? So 68, 69 hours, that is, you know, between 86 and 68, that's almost 20, that's almost a day. That you gain a day on the longer range models, almost, over the shortest range model. You gain almost a day, right? And with the mid-range, you gain some. You might gain a day. Again, you might not. Depends on how you're driving. But on the Model X 75D, you do gain a day. So if you're planning to cross the United States in a Model X 75D, and you're going there for speed, then you know that it's going to take, you know, an extra day compared to other models. But again, if you're crossing the United States, you probably have a lot of time, and that extra day is not going to change. It's not going to make or break your road trip. So I would be interested in knowing what you guys think about this performances, and whether range really makes a difference for your lifestyle in a way that will definitely justify a longer range versus shorter range. Let me know in the comments. I hope you like this video. Bye.